Good afternoon, gamers. Coming to you live from my apartment. I am your host for the day, Tettles, and joined by Team Ambition. Yay! And also, not to be outdone, Team Incarnation. Woo! Let's go! All right, congratulations,
and it's
guys.
Me, Dratnos.
Yeah, Dratnos is asleep or something, you know? You know how it goes? But in the meantime, it's just me. As the host, congratulations, guys. Absolutely massive job this past weekend with the MDI. Everybody was rooting for you guys. There was a lot of support in chat, and I just wanted to start this off by saying congratulations.
Thanks, Tettles.
Thank you.
With that, let's start by talking about some of the build up to the MDI. The first question that a lot of people ask, especially with how infrequently you guys were streaming during the whole entire MDI situation, is what does MDI Prison realistically look like for you guys? What was your daily schedule? How many breaks did you guys end up taking? And then, like, how much of it was research and trying stuff out versus just kind of ramming your head and doing full runs?
So for us, I would say most of our day was spent practicing. But I mean, at night, I definitely did a bunch of homework. I'm not sure what these guys did. I try to tell them to do their homeworks, but sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. I felt like we played one of the most amongst most of the teams in MDI.
How many hours a day were you guys practicing?
How many hours?
All of them.
Anywhere between like 10 and 14, I would say. Depends on the day.
And the Ambition guys,
And
Nerf?
for breaks, we'd probably do. Oh, yeah, you go ahead.
Or Billy? How long were you guys practicing?
10 to 14 is pretty much what we did too, and sometimes less or more. MDI Prison, pretty much just sometimes just the 10 to 14 hour days. You get some, we break sometimes. Mostly Ellesmere takes a lot of breaks, so we got to break a lot for them. But we always have like a 40-minute break sometime around like 4 to 5 p.m. And usually if like some problem occurs, usually that's when we do the research, I've noticed. So like we'll do a bunch of runs, and then if something doesn't work out, then we start researching. Usually Ellesmere is like recording, so we just look at his POV. That's pretty much it, I guess.
What are you taking all these breaks for?
It was one time.
The team can back me up, okay?
Okay. One day out of like all of the practice days, I asked for a break so I could have a sandwich and hang out with my girlfriend for like 30 minutes and relax and have some lunch. And ever since then, the whole team is like, I guess we're doing sandwich break now. And I don't know why it became such a big deal. It was one sandwich, guys. Get over it.
It was because you know how like one person AFKs, and then like the next person, like that person gets back, and then it's like, okay, wait, that person's gone too, and then it's like the next person's so AFK bad. Too. It's like a chain. Like
every single time you'll just go AFK, and then you'll be like, I need 5 minutes, and then the person will not go AFK, but then they'll be like, all right, well they're gone forever, and they'll go. And then the next person will go, and then Dorky will be like, well, let's just take a food break, and then it'll just be like an hour break time, and they're like, okay.
Yep.
I don't know about the Incarn boys, but on our team, we also always had one particular person show up late every practice. Like, there's always just one person.
Nope, it was never me, though. It was never me, though. It was never me.
True. Would anyone like to guess who it was? He likes sandwiches. That's all I can say.
No, what?
Boy.
Oh, this is so ridiculous. No.
Ellie,
Most of the
team
time,
can back me up on this. Ellie was always the last one to practice.
No, that's so wrong. That's just so wrong. This is what it's like being a healer.
I watched
you even get blamed for IRL.
I watched Genji's interview, and they described now doing the same thing, where it's like the team's like, hey, let's start at 9 a.m. or something, right? And then like everyone's on 9 a.m., but you don't actually start till like 9:15, 9:30 because of like, sometimes a person.
I can't believe you guys are saying this.
We countered that by just not setting a time. How do you guys feel with that?
Wait, do you guys not set a time?
No.
Holy shit.
Well,
so people can just show up when they want?
No. We tried setting a time, but the thing is, my teammates aren't really like time players. So just because you set a time, it doesn't really mean that's when they're gonna log in.
Hold on.
When they're gonna play. We had a schedule channel where we'd try and post our times, and then I would eventually get fed up with how late it would take to start. So Yoda would post our time, quote unquote, and then I would post our actual start time, and sometimes they would be like actually 2 hours from when the start time is. I mean, I understand. Like at the end of the day, we were playing late, and also like you don't want to play early if people aren't like ready or feeling it or whatever. So I try not to rush people. But yeah, we had some starting problems as well in the beginning of our sessions.
Yeah, I say just try to wake up at a certain time, and then as long as they wake up, that's the only important thing. Because that way we're not fucked for when the cups actually begin.
All right, so next question. Were there any pocket strategies or in dungeons that you wanted to show off, but never got a chance to, or ended up thinking it was too risky? Obviously, there was some triple shard pulls pulled off by both of you guys. That looked very impressive. Were there any other things that maybe you thought were possible, but realistically just didn't get to show off?
So there's a specific strategy with MDI where, like, if you're doing time trials and you're doing riskier pulls, right? But when it comes to a cup, one mistake and you're out. So you have to kind of balance between a very fast strategy and a strategy that you can be consistent with. You don't want to be doing pulls where, you know, half the time you wipe and the other half you succeed. You need pulls that you can guarantee will go right every single time, while obviously still being super fast. So yeah, there were definitely some pulls and some ideas that we had that we attempted and didn't really pan out because it was just too high risk for the reward. I'd say the riskiest pull was definitely that triple shard pull. And even then, it was barely better than just doing double shard plus single shard. So yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely a risk reward that comes with choosing those types of pulls and to try to pull them off in the tournament. Sometimes it's worth it, sometimes it's not.
Was that triple shard pull actually faster, or is it just like a?
Yeah.
So the main reason it was faster.
Well, hold on. I want to hear Nerf's idea. Nerf, when you developed that triple shard pull, what was your idea about it?
3 is bigger than 2, so it's faster.
Okay.
The main thing about it, Tettles, if you did both routes perfectly, you did double shard perfectly like a machine, you did triple shard perfectly, then triple shard was faster by like 10 to 15 seconds. You could probably do like an 11:25 hauls with triple shard, whereas you could probably only do like an 11:40 or so hauls with double shard. But it was like significantly more risky in retrospect. We probably shouldn't have gone with triple shard, but it looked sick. It was fun.
It did look sick.
Yeah. But like
the other thing about triple shard,
if you would, well, I was just saying, if you got all the right RNG and you executed it perfectly, it was faster to do triple shard. It was just on broadcast. A lot of the times the triple shard pull sort of dragged on relative to like how fast we were able to do it on certain occasions in practice. So that was the main thing.
And also to add on to the stuff we didn't get to show off, there's two things. One of them was we wanted to try double rogue in theater.
Oh, yeah.
Then I logged into a rogue and realized I had no idea what I was doing. So we kind of canned that one real quick, okay? And I logged back on the monk and spinned. And the second one was Ellesmere wanted to try out a 4th DPS role playing an Ellie Shaman, but the team kind of unanimously decided that we will not be doing that. So like we actually had to practice the 4 DPS. 1 tank.
I see.
So those are the two stats
that was
we didn't get to show
the
off.
4 DPS thing was one of those examples of like maybe worth it for certain time trials if the affixes were right, but would never be done in a cup because it's just too risky.
Dude, I'm pretty sure Holy Paladin does more damage than Ellie Shaman. That class is OP.
That class is OP. All right, so let's move on to competition day. So there's a lot of people in here who had never competed in an MDI prior to this one. Obviously, Yoda and Nerf had done it before. Ellesmere had some experience at least.
Fly me out.
Fly me out. You know how it goes.
I was there. I also healed Jason.
Okay. All right. So were there any nerves, and like what were your biggest worries going into day one? I guess Growl, you can field this one since it was your first MDI.
Yeah, I think the way the nerves work for me is they were bad at first and then they got easier as everything went on. Honestly, the match that I was most nervous about was the very first one against I don't even remember the team's name, like in Plaguefall in our cup. And just because you don't know what to expect, right? Like you don't know what's going to go wrong and like how well you're going to play and anything. But the nice thing about it is it's not really like you're playing against another person. So as soon as you get into the dungeon, your practice just sort of kicks in, and like everything sort of clicks, and things get like things sort of come together. As the tournament went on, the nerves definitely got easier. I think there were definitely some times like the worst by far is when you're in a dungeon and you're towards the end, and then you hear one of your teammates say, okay, they wiped. All you need to do is just live and you win. And it's like as soon as that happens, it's just every single bad possibility goes through your head. I still remember the match versus Echo in winners finals where we were in halls, and then Echo made that mistake and they wiped, and you go into the last boss, the one that throws the statues, and you're all slowed, and it's just like, okay, don't get hit by the statues is the only thing you have to do in your existence on Earth, and it's the hardest thing ever. But besides that, it wasn't too bad.
Onesie, what
You
were your
died
nerves like?
anyways.
I didn't die.
I think the nerves would have
you did.
been a lot crazier if it was on LAN and like it was like a LAN event like it was supposed to be. I think that would have been a lot of fun. But I don't know. I think I kind of agree with what Grouse said, where the nerves were happening like on the first day, right before you get into the matches, and then once you actually get in there, everything just clicks. Everything you learn from practice, everything you guys went over for the past 2 weeks, it just all comes down to right there in that moment, and you just got to make sure you execute.
All right, I think that that's like super reasonable, just from like a nerve perspective. It being on LAN would be a lot more fun to see everybody in person again.
Dude,
Oh, yeah.
awesome.
So next up, Ambition, Pick'em Killers. How was that, Mr. JPC? How are you feeling about slaughtering everybody's pick'ems by knocking out Perplexed in the first round?
I obviously felt good as opposed to losing, but
Okay, fair.
after I was really surprised that we won the first game actually, because we had kind of a slow time, and we had a bad mask patrol which messed up the skeletons into the drill pool, and then we had Death and Ardenweald. So I sort of felt like we got lucky on the first game, but then when we won the second game, it felt really, really good. That Halls match was probably like the best feeling I felt like in all of MDI. And in the moment, we didn't know that it was so close, but like in retrospect, when you watch the broadcast back and you see you won by like 1 second, so that was a good showing by us. And also, that Halls probably I had the most nerves about, because that first triple shard pull is super hard for Rogue, because there's so many spitefuls, frontals, the rapid fire, like all this stuff's going on. And that morning we had wiped a few times on the triple shard pull, so
Yeah.
I didn't know what was going to happen. And then after we pulled it off, like I was like, okay, we can actually do this, we could win. And then we did. So yeah, it felt really good.
Yeah, that morning and the night before, like we were practicing halls like over and over again, and like we were just having trouble on the triple shard. Like it was not looking good. And then we just finally get into the game and we knock it out. It's probably honestly, the one we did on broadcast was probably our best pull in like the 12 hours that we were practicing it prior.
You mean the day before?
Yeah, like throughout all night, and then that morning, like the one on broadcast was probably our best pull.
Yeah.
The thing about MDI and like being on broadcast and stuff is, as soon as you actually start the key, like we were talking about, yeah, there's a lot of nerves, but once you start the key, like everyone jumps to a whole new level of communication, and every single thing that has ever gone wrong is like, we're talking about it in real time. We're like, make sure you do this, make sure this doesn't go off. And like, there's so much communication between the team that you play at a whole nother level when that's happening. And that's something that I really wish that we could have tapped into during practice. And like, the teams that can figure out how to practice with that same energy are the teams that are going to win. So definitely for future competitions, that's like the number one thing I think that we need to improve on, is making sure that we're practicing with the same energy that we had when we were actually competing in the cup.
So obviously, like the bracket is public. How do both of you guys teams like determine which dungeons to learn? Like obviously I feel like you probably end up putting the most amount of time into like the first couple of upper bracket rounds, but realistically, how do you prioritize which dungeons you're going to get insanely good at versus which dungeons are just going to kind of be like, all right, I feel like this is an acceptable enough run.
So basically, first you look at what dungeons you play on day 1. Those are your 3 most important dungeons. Then you look at which ones you play on day 1 and day 2, and you super prioritize those. And then after that, I guess you kind of look at your perceived path to the tournament, like what you think is going to happen, and then what you have to practice based on that. So for us, I think that was Sanguine Depths we played on day 1 and day 2. So that was like our biggest priority. And then we had, I believe, DOS, we had also day 1, day 2, and then Halls, we had only day 2. But if we lost to Esther, which we thought Esther was going to be really good, then we had to play it for elimination as well. So we also prepared a really good Halls.
I think it depends a little bit on the cup too. So in the very first cup, there was a larger skill discrepancy between each of the teams. And so, for example, there was Omega Pump and there was Echo. And those were the matches that we had practiced for the most, right? Because we kind of figured, as long as we do the other dungeons reasonably, we can get through them. But the global finals was a lot different in that every single team was good, right? Like there was no like, oh, this will be a pushover match. Like maybe for some teams there were, but for us it didn't feel that way. And so I think for global finals we smoothed out our practice a lot more, whereas in the cups we practiced probably 75% of our time was just the matches that we would play in second round and then like losers finals, like basically the ones that we needed to qualify.
Similar sentiment from you guys, Billy?
I guess, I mean, pretty much Nerf kind of shot called which ones for us to practice. Like a day before the tournament, we practiced all the day 1 dungeons. So it was Mist, Halls, DOS, and then at that point, we just pretty much hit every dungeon that we didn't feel comfortable in, which was like Plaguefall and Spires. So like in a way, we kind of practiced every dungeon as much as we could. But if it's like the day before, then we would just practice the current upcoming dungeon, right? So like after day 1, we practice what's coming up in day 2. After day 2, we practice what's coming up in day 3. Stuff like that.
So going around the room, what was everybody's personal favorite moment during the competition?
Rinsing Ambition in that miss. That was like one of the best. That was like one of the best games I've played, like of any keys. It sounds like silly to say, but I feel like I almost like used too much energy on that one game. Like I just went into that game thinking like, all right, like we don't even care about anything, any like losers finals, grand finals. Like we just have to win this. And that miss, like I feel like as a team we played really, really, really well, and that was like it was pretty fun to like do a dungeon that fast where we felt like we all played like really solid. I think that's probably my favorite moment. I'm sure there's some other ones that I might be missing though.
My favorite was against team name in the Sanguine Depths. It felt like despair, and we were fucking going downhill. But then we look in the armor monitor, like, wait, these fucking idiots wiped. How the hell are they losing? And then all of a sudden, we're in the lead around second and third boss.
There was one moment during Sanguine Depths, everyone's in the fucking dumps because we're like triple wiping, and then we're like about to pull third boss. I look at that, I'm like, yo guys, we killed Tarvold first. Everyone's like, what? How did this happen? Yeah, it was pretty awesome.
Okay, that's for the Ambition guys. JPC, you want to start? What was your favorite moment?
Definitely Halls versus Perplexed.
My favorite moment was destroying everyone's pick'ems. That was definitely really good.
Dude, that was that was some good Twitter shit.
Wait,
yeah.
What did Lindsay say?
That was a great upset. The 2-0 against Perplex.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was a really good feeling. Just destroying everyone's pick'ems on the first day.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. 2-0 Perplexed. Like it felt like those because Perplex being the top seed in the tournament, like it just like playing Perplex and then Echo back to back. I don't know, it just felt like both games could have been like the finals.
Definitely the 2-0 Perplex. I mean, I don't think anyone on the team would disagree that was kind of the most hype moment for us. Knocking out the first seed in the first round, especially coming in as, technically the 8th seed from the last stand tournament. And after losing our cup, it was redemption that we needed. And then I would say it was closely followed by both our maps against Echo felt like we played really well, outside of like 1 or 2 small mistakes in each and unlucky patrol timings. It really just felt like we could definitely beat Echo. And knowing that we are able to play at the same level as them in the cup gave us a lot of motivation going forward in practicing for the next couple matchups we had.
For me, like obviously the perplexed is the easily most favorite part, but I'm trying to think that the other part would probably be like winning Plaguefall when we played it, because
Oh yeah.
like what James said, as you can see, like our Plaguefall practice was kind of miserable.
Minimal.
It was miserable and minimal. Those are both the words I would use to describe it. So like, and so winning Plaguefall like kind of felt really good. But other than that, like the Perplex 2-0 was by far my most favorite.
All right, so obviously MDI took a lot of time. Was there any particularly low points for either of the teams where it was like, oh my god, what have I signed up for? This is not it.
Every moment.
Yeah.
Every moment.
Yeah.
I think every moment.
I think one thing that happened was a lot of teams kind of got tricked. Not to say it was like intentional, but I think with the format change, a lot of people expected the MDI to be less time consuming based on like how the cups worked and the fact that each team would only have to play one cup and then the global finals. But I think in the end, the amount of practice and time that got sank into the MDI in general was relatively similar to previous cups. And I think that is going to be a problem moving forward. I think that the MDI is going to start losing a lot of its competitors quickly if the format isn't adjusted so that it's less all-consuming from a time perspective.
Yeah, I think both of our teams specifically got hurt really bad for that. I like definitely second that sentiment that we didn't necessarily know what we were getting into, because I think the reason that both of us were willing to sign up was because they lowered the time constraint. But so our team had the very last cup, which meant that although we only had to play one cup, we're sitting there on Tournament Realm and we're watching all these other teams and we're like, wow, we should really be practicing. Like we had the ability to practice, so I felt like they should limit the amount of time that teams can practice. Like, while we're grateful that we got to spend that time because it felt like we were behind, it was really bad that like we were on there for weeks and weeks and weeks. It wasn't just like, oh, 1 week before our cup. We were like practicing for almost a full month. And then same with Ambition, where they had an earlier cup, but they had a tough match versus Obey, and they ended up having to be in Last Stand prison. So their cup technically was even later than ours, where their cup that they made it out of was at the very, very end. And I'm sure they put in they probably had a similar reaction to us where we weren't really sure what to expect, but then once we got in there and we got beat by some teams, we're just like, wow, we really need to put in some work. And I think that was motivation for us to like actually put in probably way too many hours. But yeah, I hope in the future that they limit the amount of time. It's hard because when you give us practice time, we're going to take it. We're going to play every hour that we can because we want to win. But at the same time, like, I think they just have to say, like, okay, keys are off. Like, you can't be playing right now. You can't be practicing because it's just it's like too much almost. Because if you don't and the other team does, then it's like they're just at such a huge advantage.
I mean, to
Yeah.
be fair, we needed it, and we were more of a rookie team. Whereas,
we needed it bad.
Echo and they didn't really practice much, even though they had the same cup as us.
I mean, are those the biggest changes that you'd like to see for the next like MDI Cup? Is just like limiting the amount of practice, and like how would that affect some of the other teams? Like, obviously, you guys are all incredibly skilled, but for like newer teams that haven't competed before,
for newer teams coming in, there's like way too much catch up, and if they didn't have all this MDI practice, they would have like absolutely no chance. Assuming you go into a new cup and you would only have like say 3 days of prep or some shit.
Yeah. And I mean, I think one thing that's easy to overlook is like all the teams that did MDI last season. Like, even though like the affixes are different and the key levels are different, like there's still like a million mistakes that happened last season in practice that like new teams have to still make in the upcoming season. And even though they didn't play the last MDI, they're not going to know those mistakes until they make them.
It's just tough because it's really top heavy too. Like, I think it wouldn't be so bad if, let's say, you're a new team and then you get, fourth in your cup and you're like, okay, nice, like you're happy with this. But realistically, in the cups, nobody's happy unless they make it into the global finals, right? But I think they're going in the right direction with doing like in-game rewards and stuff, because yeah, you might definitely be behind, but it'll take like, a couple of cups of practice, but at least you have something to show for it, right? Like, oh, we have something that we got from placing like whatever in the qualifiers, and then a couple of tournaments down the line is when you're actually like, you feel like you're caught up. But yeah, I think it's tough. It's like a double-edged sword because like teams like us who are willing to just make that leap and go really hard on it, like we benefited a ton from the practice. And if we didn't have that practice time, we wouldn't have been able to do what we did. But at the same time, it's like, man, the glooming idea of like doing this whole thing again and spending all this time again, it's like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I'm ready for this.
All right. So let's look forward to 9.1.5 as it has come out this week, and everybody is currently a Lost Ark main, not even playing 9.1.5 that much.
Oh yeah.
So I guess the first thing about 9.1.5 is like, do you think that there are going to be any major meta shifts with some of the stuff that has happened to some of the classes in 9.1.5 that will have like implications for like the Great Push? Obviously, there was stuff with like AoE cap changes. But any like super hot tips or dark horse guesses for a spec that's about to get closer to the meta? JPC?
Yeah, I think a dark horse is going to be Windwalker.
Yeah. So
the dark horse.
That's a Tettles dark horse. That's a Tettles.
They're a second seed. They were a second seed. Don't talk.
I think Fear Warrior looks pretty
Whatever
good.
spec they play.
Like I think in Great Push you could maybe see like Fury Outlaw Windwalker or something along those lines with like Rest of Shaman like a Lust Healer.
That is some copium.
No, I mean I've seen some Fury Warrior like 18k overalls in some pretty high keys, but everything. I mean, obviously Rogue, Windwalker, Frostmage just got better than they were before, so that's gonna stay pretty dominant in a lot of keys.
The specs that were already meta kind of got more meta because specs like Windwalker, Frostmage, and Rogue were already capped and meta, and now they're uncapped. So if anything, it just worsened the problem. I would not be surprised though if we saw some major class changes coming out in the coming weeks before the Great Push. I'm not 100% sure on that, but my working theory is that they wanted to see how specs were performing with the AoE cap introduced before they pushed any major class changes for 9.1.5. But it's also possible that none of that does happen, and in that case, you're probably just going to see more of the same in the Great Push tournament.
Copium.
I'm actually surprised you felt that way. Yeah, I didn't think they would cover any changes until 9.2, but maybe that's just me.
Really? You didn't think no changes at all?
No, no changes.
All right, maybe I'm just I
actually think
too high on
will get
copium.
touched this expansion, but I don't know when. I think it's gonna for sure get touched though.
What is?
There's
Yeah,
no
I mean
way.
maybe 9.2, but that's still a while
At some
now.
point. I just refuse to believe they're gonna leave it.
What's the spec?
Yeah.
Was it Windwalker?
Yeah, I think that spec for sure gets touched some way.
I just hope that they touch Dance of fucking Chi-Chi, because
Like
if I have to play
do a DOS with a Windwalker now, like there.
if I have to play one more tournament with that stupid talent, I will lose my mind.
What do you mean you don't like Dance of Chi-Chi Roulette, where every pull you go into, you don't know if it's going to be the hardest pull you've ever healed or if it's just going to get deleted in 10 seconds? That's my favorite.
It's actually not even that.
Feel fresh.
It's like so there's like this add-on that like tells you, oh, your best time killing this boss is 3 minutes into the dungeon, right? So like Nerf stares at that add-on, and actually our whole team does, right? And if a pull is like 5 seconds slower, they say, oh, this is 5 seconds slower. And then it gets very demotivating. In the back of my head, I'm just like, dude, this is Chi-Chi procs. This is Chi-Chi procs. This is Chi-Chi procs. There's nothing we can do. But sometimes it's, I don't know.
The worst is when you see other teams put up like a crazy time in a certain like split in a dungeon. And you're like, how the fuck did they do that? And then you go look and like the Windwalker's doing 100k boss damage because they just procced to infinity. And it's like, okay, well, how are we going to match that? Because when you're practicing, it's all about like matching times and making sure that you can do whatever the other teams are doing as good or better. So if one team is on broadcast and just procs like crazy, like you now have to figure out how to do it as fast as them. And it just sucks.
Yeah, like for individual pulls especially, right? Like you'll be struggling with a pull and you'll think like, oh man, Perplexing did this pull really well. Let's go watch them. And then you look, and then the Windwalker's just doing 500 million damage, and you're like, oh. Okay, well,
Well, it doesn't teach you
I guess
anything.
we just can't learn how they did this poll, and I guess we just have to try and figure it out.
Yeah, that just seems like an awkward spot because like obviously they were able to figure out how to do the pull consistently, but then they procced and you're like, I have nothing I can learn here. Yeah.
Yep.
All right. So, are you guys personally looking forward to going back to live keys, and are you guys going to be pushing for rank 1 on the Raider.io or / Mythic Plus score leaderboards?
I mean, I've watched a couple of live keys over the past couple of days for this new week, and I'll be honest, it doesn't look really exciting pulling 3 mobs at a time and just sitting there fighting them and using toys.
JPC's gonna make us play, don't worry.
Yeah, if it fails, Miro log in.
What? True. I was literally logged in all day yesterday.
True.
Onesie
Onesi's Valorant main, Nerf's Elite. Billy's a Pug God X.
True.
And I'm just sitting there in Orbos running circles.
Dorky, you guys gonna push for rank 1?
Oh yeah, we definitely will. Yeah. I don't think we have a chance.
Is it because the Windwalker?
No, I just feel like at most I'll probably do like 24s, 25s.
24s?
Maybe. Yeah, I'm like 240 item level or some shit.
You could definitely get the rank 1 title.
True, the hero title, right?
Yeah.
I'm already a hero of the Horde though, so.
All right. So, for those who have not played in Legion, how do you feel about time walking Mythic Plus on the horizon? I guess Grau, you can probably field this one first since you're the one who notably has not played those dungeons.
Jeez. I hope my team doesn't kick me for Great Push and replace me with a healer that knows Legion. I think it's a cool idea. I hope that... So they've done a little bit of dabbling with it. They've added like a time walking period, and they've mentioned they're going to do it in Great Push. I hope this is progress towards the idea of having older dungeons in the rotation more often, so that like they're working on the system to try and bring old dungeons in so that we can have more dungeons in Mythic Plus, and it's not just like we're stuck with 8 or whatever. I hope that's the case. To me, it isn't quite enough where it is now, but it's progress, right? So my copium is that it's progress, and then in the future we'll see older dungeons like as part of Mythic Plus or something. But when it's just like a time walking thing, it's not very exciting for me. Like it's just kind of like a side event or whatever. And for Great Push, it's like okay. It's, you know, I guess it's hard because I still haven't set foot in them, right? I still don't know, so I don't know if they're, you know, everyone talks about the legendary crab pulls or whatever. I guess I'm just gonna have to wait and see.
JPC as one of the other resident non-Legion players.
Yeah, I guess I'm a bit excited just to like kind of do it for fun. It seems like fun stream content, but I think the main thing would be like echoing Grau's sentiment that the long-term goal would be to get a one-off dungeon like included in your normal mix of dungeons from a previous expansion, so it doesn't, especially if 8 dungeons is the new norm for an expansion, it just seems like too few for such a long period of time. And like they have a bunch of old content that's really accessible and it will be really easy to make into M+. For a lot of it you already had M+ back then, so they just like copy paste, and I think it would help players stay more engaged, probably.
All right, so speaking of Great Push and Legion Mythic Plus dungeons, are you guys looking forward to the second Great Push, Onesie?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I think the last Great Push was probably like one of the most exciting things I've done in this game. So I'm definitely excited for the next one, but they are bringing in some Legion dungeons that I've never done before. Also, so that's going to be quite the time. But yeah, it should be great.
Hey, you have Nerf, Elismir, and Billy on your team to be able to help you.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll teach me.
I was doing keys then. I know Nerf was.
Dorky, do you echo that sentiment as Onesie for second Great Push?
Not sure what our plans are yet, but yeah, it'd be fun. I feel like it'd be something I like to mess around with, you know, maybe play some Bloody Care or some shit.
I hope that more teams stream this time around. Like when it happened the first time, everyone was like pretty serious about it, and there wasn't that much streaming going on, like especially for qualifiers or whatever. And that was like the biggest problem with MDI for me, is that all the downtime from streaming and like, you know, wanting to involve the community in it. So I hope now that we're like, if MDI is our serious event, hopefully more teams will like stream and be open, and like it'll be more of a I don't want to say for fun. Like I still want it to be competitive, but people won't be as sweaty about it. I guess. Like I think it'll be better for us if we can, just like stay streaming at least most of the time and like involve the community and everyone's watching. Like that's what's cool about Great Push is it's not in a YouTube no stream prison.
That's also partially because it's like not as competitive.
It's also about like execution, right? It's less about practice and secret tech and how the poll got set up, and it's a lot more about execution. Do you think that there realistically is a way that MDI ever gets streamed, or is it one of those things that it's just you lose so much?
I don't think so. Yeah, I don't think so. Especially whenever teams copy your strats, it's like really bad. But I mean, maybe if like the prize pool was smaller and it was like less competitive in a way.
I was just gonna say, like, streaming MDI practice is a lot less enjoyable to watch, in my opinion, than like if we stream Great Push practice, because like it's just MDI practice is just so monotonous. Like you just do the same pull over and over for like 5 hours, and like at least when you practice for like if you're doing high keys, you go through the whole dungeon and you get to see all the bosses, and maybe you time the key, maybe you barely fail the key. It's like all this hype building up for like 20 minutes or something, right? Whereas like MDI, someone dies, you go reset. Someone presses a global at the wrong time, you go reset. Someone stands 1 foot to the left, you go reset. So it's like probably wouldn't be fun to watch for a lot of people.
Do you think you prefer the Great Push format over MDI format?
100%.
Definitely.
100%.
Why?
Well, like I think a lot of people that don't compete in MDI probably wouldn't know, but there's like so much RNG that you're subject to over the course of a run, like things like GG procs, things like explosive spawns, dungeon patrols, like just a lot of different RNG, spell queuing, spell targeting. And when you have like, your goal is to become as consistent as possible, but like anything can happen like on during the match, and like I think the prime example of that is Perplex. Like they're definitely one of the best teams in the tournament, and through a combination of just getting unlucky and maybe just having a bad game, like they got eliminated, right? Double 2-0. And there's like a part of me that I don't know, like if you look at the finals, right? When Echo played at Aster, if you took Perplex Hall's time and you played Echo and Aster in the finals, Perplex would have beat Echo and Aster. But then they lost to us just like randomly, kind of like a bit unlucky because we just happen to have a really good time that, and it's just, I don't know. There's just a lot of aspects of it. Like I think the Great Push format, 100% of the time, will find the best team and eliminates the RNG element. And I think Echo still was the best team and that they deserve to win. But there's just a lot of, I don't know. It just kind of feels weird to see a key that, like if you look at the times that were put up in the finals, I think a lot of teams, maybe like 5 or 6 teams, probably could have put up those times. And I don't know.
There's definitely a thing in the MDI where like if one team wipes, the other team starts playing slow, and then like if you wipe at the beginning, it's pretty obvious who's gonna win, and you also have to like a lot of I would just say a lot of the time like matches are determined by sloppy play. But then the problem with the Great Push format is that it encourages teams to just do like insane high risk pulls that are like, let's say 50% success rate, and you have like 3 of these pulls in one dungeon. You run the dungeon 8 times, you'll get the run once. But you can't. That's not a viable strategy in MDI. So I think one of the compromises Blizzard made in the past was for time trials. You'd have as like the normal amount of practice time, and then you'd have 5 official keys, and you had to get your run as one of those 5 keys. So you couldn't do like insane high risk strategies, but at the same time, like if you had a sloppy run, then it was still fine.
Well, that's not necessarily true though, right? Like we talked about before. If you're just gonna keep doing these risky strats, you're wasting time. You only have 5 hours per day, and you have 3 of those days, so you can't just like keep going there and just YOLO.
And
especially after the last stand tournament, that just got reinforced. Like our strategy in the last stand tournament was very similar to the way we played the Great Push, which is like, yes, risky strats are good, but those 5 hours fly by so fast. You don't even notice that they're gone. And if you end up trying to waste your time doing, 8 dungeon runs of the same dungeon, trying these risky pulls, even if you get a good time, you are now fucked in all the other dungeons, and you're going to have to spend a lot more time in them in the next 2 days. So I think that it's not entirely true that you're able to just like YOLO these psycho strats with how limited the time is in the Great Push tournament. The thing I like most about the Great Push tournament is actually that you don't know what the affixes are until game day, and they disable practice outside of tournament hours. I think that both those things, encourage less of a degenerate practice schedule, for one, and for two, I think it's also really cool for both viewers and competitors to be able to think on the fly and have to, come up with routes on the fly and, change your strats based on what the affixes are and your comps and stuff like that. So I'm a big fan of not knowing the affixes until the day of, so that you get all that sort of reactionary, stuff that makes it kind of more realistic and less, because when you're watching the MDI, it's totally unrealistic from a viewer perspective, the polls that these people are doing, because we spend, tens to hundreds of hours in these dungeons practicing these insane polls over and over, getting every single micro detail down. And I think that is less relatable for viewers. Whereas in the Great Push format, you're not able to do, you don't have that same level of practice going into those dungeons because the affixes shift so much of how you pull the dungeons. And so the polls are a bit more reasonable and, a bit more fun for the viewer to see and relate to.
Format's changing too, right? So in the previous Great Push, it was just 3 days of kind of playing, and then you see who has the best times. But now there's the gauntlet style format where you don't have all the dungeons right away, and then the first day the team with the worst time gets eliminated. And I think we're talking about like MDI versus Great Push, but also keep in mind the Great Push format is evolving too, and I think this will be a really good change. Like the biggest problem with Great Push was just the viewer experience, is you just have a bunch of teams like doing random stuff and you don't know what's going on. But I think now that there's sort of like a goal, and like each day something happens and there'll be like more climaxes, I guess, in the tournament. I think the Great Push format is only getting better too.
100% agree.
Yeah. As for pushing keys versus speedrunning, I mean, do you guys have like strong preferences on that? Or do you think that those are just like two completely separate skill sets and you're kind of okay with both existing in tandem?
I think there just aren't enough dungeons. Like pushing keys on live high keys are fun when there's a large variety and you're kind of like bouncing back and forth. Like that's what makes pushing keys on live fun, is that everything's different like each run, and you have to sort of like take what you can get with the run that you're given. Like, oh, you have this key, it's a really good key, like you have to make it work then, is what I kind of like about that. And the problem now is like not only is there 8 dungeons, but now you can just like infinitely reroll keys to get the good dungeons that you want, and it feels like a lot more repetitive almost. And I feel like live, to me at least, since they've reduced the amount of dungeons and they've added key rerolling, has lost a lot of its luster than it did before. I still enjoy it for sure, but I think like what makes me enjoy live is the variety and like the non repetitiveness of it, and it's kind of getting especially with the the great content drought of 2021, we're definitely to the point where it's like I feel like all of us here have just been like, when it comes to pushing live keys, it's like been there, done that with this expansion, like there's nothing new for us. Yeah, we can go in and just try and do the 29 keys again, and it's like, I guess, and we might do it. Like, it is fun. I don't want to say that I'm like really disliking it, but it just doesn't feel the same as it did in season 1 or in like BFA when we had 12 dungeons.
I actually think the been there, done that attitude is something that I resonate super heavily with. All right, so guess that's going to be it. Any last messages you guys want to share with viewers or fans? Ambition guys, I guess you can start us off. All right, so no messages for viewers or fans. They hate their fans. Incarnation guys?
Dude.
Incarnation guys, now's your time to be able to steal all of Ambition's fans.
All right, I have a statement prepared. I feel like what a lot of fans might not realize, the hard part about doing this is we spend all this time like trying to grow an audience and help people and answer questions and like be better streamers, And then when we try and do this, it's like we're totally at odds with that, and it's very, very hard as a content creator to just like completely abandon everything for so long. And just seeing like all the people in the chat and the people that come back to the stream or post comments on YouTube or in the matches, it just like makes me feel so much better. And as I like really appreciate that fact, knowing that, you know, everyone's here for us. And yeah, we, you know, we maybe went dark for a little bit, but everyone's, you know, welcoming and ready for us to come back. So I think that at least I can't speak for everyone, but like my audience especially has made me, I was very nervous about doing this, and they made me feel real good about, you know, okay, well, we can give this a try and see how it goes. And they were happy to watch the matches. And now that we're back, we're back on the normal stream grind.
All right. I think with that said, that's going to be it for us today. Hope you guys all have a great rest of your day, and we will see you guys in the video. Goodbye.
GG's.
GG's.